Alright, so on trial today, we've got the famous mangaka Aka Akasaka on trial for delivering a pretty lackluster finale to one of his most recent mangas, Oshi no Ko. And if I'm looking at my notes right, this isn't the first time that he's been accused for something like this. I guess we're throwing that double jeopardy rule right out the window. But I will never put Kaguya-sama on that list because I will always defend its ending. But no, Oshi no Ko's ending seems to have been a lot more polarizing than what all of these other storylines have been like. And since you clicked on this video, I'm almost certain you know what the main grievance is with most people that have read this ending. Aqua Hoshino, the main character of the entire series, dies in its final few chapters. It's something that was spelled to hell for most people, and it just caused such an uproar in the community. But in reality, I think Oshi no Ko's fall off started quite a bit before that, because this series is a far cry from being that anime that had the #1 best episode to come out in recent memory, or having that Billboard Top 100 #1 song, Idol. Oshi no Ko's popularity spiked when it became an anime. And that's not an understatement. Everyone was talking about the show. But then, you know, just add on a potential incestuous relationship, and people are definitely not going to talk about it as much. Oh, but I'm not saying that this is all around the world. I mean, in Japan, Oshi no Ko is still huge. People absolutely adore that series to the extent that there's the live action that just came out recently, and there's that other spin-off content that we're going to be talking about later on in this video. It's been panned, but it's been panned mainly here in the West. Now, I'm not saying that Aqua's death is what makes Oshi no Ko's ending bad. Not at all. Honestly, if it was done in a way that made a bit more sense and fit with all of our other characters, I would have actually loved the execution of his death. Because Oshi no Ko as a story is something that deals with really dark themes. There's murders, there's suicides, it talks about the abuses of the entertainment industry. It's not a series that shies away from all this stuff. In fact, it's able to portray both this really dark stuff with really lighthearted elements to make a story that everyone enjoys. That darkness, that spice is what draws people to the series. If it wasn't because of that, this would have been just another rom-com that Akasaka decided to write. And since he was writing it, to be honest, I wouldn't have been mad about that. But I think Aqua's death was something that we could have expected to see as a possible conclusion to the story. And in fact, Akasaka's even gone on record to say that he always wanted to end the manga this way. And if you look back, yeah, there's some things that kind of make this a little bit more evident. Just take, for instance, Mephisto's ED in Season 1. That entire imagery that you've got over there is the same exact thing that you get in this manga that came out like a year later. So it was definitely planned. My thoughts on this is that Aqua's death came extremely rushed. Even though Akasaka planned his death ever since the beginning, the way that we got to this point just feels completely unfulfilling. The best way that I can describe this is going down one of the bad routes in a visual novel. You know, one of those dead ends where maybe you just didn't talk to the right characters, you didn't meet the right requirements. You just ended up at a dead end and decided to go with that ending. You didn't actually reach the end goal. The series ends in such an abrupt way that it feels like you just gave up before reaching that true end. And now, I get the perspective of people saying, no, this completely rounds out the story. Yes, it does. Only if you're factoring in Aqua. He's the only character in the entire story that, with this ending, gets a semblance of closure. He finally achieves his mission. He kills Kamiki. That's exactly what Goro wanted him to do this entire time. It's just that in doing so, every single one of our other characters suffers because of this. And I'm not saying they suffer in terms of how they are in the story, how tragic it is for them. They suffer in their characterizations. They suffer in their entire plot arcs. The biggest example of this comes in our secondary protagonist, the other person on every cover that we've got over here, Ruby. Because for a long time, she's been a character that has just been kind of pushed back to the background the entire time. Sometimes she's absent for entire chapters, maybe even an arc or two. She was being given a lot less to do until it came to the movie arc, because that's when they decided to go down the forbidden arc and actually maybe even try to use her as a character somewhat. But here's the thing. Her reaction to Aqua's death is not given nearly enough screen time. We're told in the chapter right after what happens to all of our characters in the most generalized shorthand version that you can ever get to finish off rounding off your characters. Ruby just took in all that pain and just kept on running. She channeled it into creative energy and kept going. Okay, that makes sense, right? But we're not given nearly enough time to see her sit with that. Now, I'm not saying that I wanted to see her like mope around and be like this character that just cries forever, but here's the thing. Ruby's a character that was in love with a doctor in her previous life because she was in a hospital, she couldn't do much. This doctor inspired her, and she was still in love with him even when she passed on over into being Ruby. So much so that her feelings still stay the same when she found out that that doctor was her brother. She is the same girl that when she was in that previous life also loved an idol. And so much so that she even wanted to become an idol even after she reincarnated. Especially because that idol she loved so much became her mother. And she was also the person that got that same dark determination as Aqua to want to kill and hunt down Kamiki for what he's done to them. She is not a character known for letting things go so easily. And I think the story would have greatly benefited by having maybe an extra arc or two with all of our other side characters having closure. Being told that they get it after some time is just not satisfying. Now, Ruby was done dirty, but what about our other girls? We've got Kana and Akane over here. They definitely have some sort of ending, right? Well, if you go based off the manga's ending, there's not much there. Kana just completely implodes on herself and just like slaps Aqua's dead corpse. And Akane feels guilty because she couldn't help out Aqua commit the most perfect murder possible. And yeah, and that's where they're left off. But Akasaka then came out to say, well, if you want to know more about these two characters in specific, there's a novel that's going to be releasing in December. And that's going to be exploring a lot more of the relationship together. That's going to be exploring a lot more about how they just kept on living after Aqua's death. I bet that that's going to be the most perfect ending just based off that alone, right? No, because this ending also doesn't give us any closure on our characters. By the end of the light novel, you've got Kana just completely married to her work. That's the only thing that she can think of. That's the only thing that she can do. She's now starbound to go to Hollywood. But then over here on the flip side, you've got Akane trying to become some sort of like a spirit detective or something in hopes of trying to revive Aqua into another person's body because now she's confronting our Crow girl over here about how she did it. Leading to some potential speculation that this could be something like, hey, maybe there's gonna be an Oshinoko 2 or something like that, with Akane being our central protagonist here. But it's weird because the characters didn't get over his death. And our Crow girl warns that this is a terrible path to go down. Yeah, I don't really know what to make of that. In the final epilogue of the final volume, we get a little bit more information that just emphasizes what that novel was talking about, with interviews that talk to Kana and Akane. So that means that that's actually a possibility there. And the other big revelation that we get is that Oshinoko, the title of the entire story, comes from Mem writing like a 2chan post. Because she's giving like her thoughts on what that term means. Okay, I guess. I think that was a little bit unnecessary there because there was nothing else that we could have really gotten from that. Finishing it off like this is just the most abrupt finale for everything. And I don't think that it seemed like it was Akasaka's intent to make a sequel or anything for this series. I thought that he just wanted to move on and go to make another story. That's usually what he's been doing this entire time. We even have like a whole crew of characters that didn't even matter to the story at all. They were introduced and then they had like nothing else other than that one moment in the story that they had like a big revelation or something come up. Because you guys remember, Aqua actually has a half-brother? Yeah, the most important thing about him is that he wrecked his car and nothing else came out of it. We didn't even see what his reaction was after finding out anything about Kamiki or seeing how he reacted with Aqua and Kamiki killing each other at the end. There's just so many things that are just left open that just doesn't make any sense. And when we're talking about the ending as a whole, and yeah, even though this is an ending that completes Aqua's arc, this is still something that leaves quite a lot of room for like plot holes and things that just happen for plot convenience sake. Because let's say this, the entire reason why Aqua commits double suicide over here with Kamiki is because he doesn't want Kamiki to be around Ruby for the potential of him wanting to murder her, and he also doesn't want to cause drama by being a murderer or labeled like that because he thinks the negative press that would be coming from that would negatively impact Ruby and her career going forward. So he decides a double suicide is going to be the best way to quell any of those things. Yeah, that makes sense to an extent, because now with a double suicide, wouldn't you think that the drama's even bigger than what it would have been with just the simple murder? And even then, the double suicide is the thing that launched Ruby's career into the stratosphere. That's what allowed her to play at Tokyo Dome, or whatever that venue was. It's drama like that that sold her story. It's drama like that that sold movie tickets. Whatever route Aqua chose to do in that moment, he could have still lived and she would have still been popular. And now let's not say that Aqua's death was also the only way this could have gone down either, because let's just say this, a few chapters earlier, we went into a little bit of that goofy area that's a little bit more cliche that Oshinoko is not afraid to actually go into, because over here, we've got Akane probably playing maybe one of the best performances of her life, where she acts like she's Ruby and she gets stabbed by a previous Bikomachi member in an act of murder. But then they do like a whole Scooby-Doo moment where they do an I gotcha moment. If they do something like this like 2-3 chapters before, you would expect that they would have been able to do something like this even with Aqua. I mean, come on, common sense would say that he could have some people like out in the bushes over there listening into his conversation with Kamiki, because he essentially gives out an entire confession right then and there. And with what Spirit Detective Akane was doing over here, she would have been able to catch all the accomplices pretty quick. Akasaka just decided to write himself into a corner that he just didn't want to do anything else with. But no, Akasaka didn't want to give us any hopes of that whatsoever. So much so that he actually showed the painful progress of Aqua dying chapter after chapter after chapter. He really wanted to nail home that this guy was forever gone. Aqua even gets a little visit from Crow Girl, the most pointless deity in this entire universe, because she brought back Ruby and Aqua to live these new lives, but I guess she didn't have any real reason to bring them over other than the fact that they were nice to her when she was a crow. She legit says to Aqua, like, yeah, no, all of your choices were you, Aqua. They weren't Goro, because Goro was just another person. There's a lot of things that just make you your own person, and you decided this route all on your own. It didn't have to lead to this. There was nothing that was making them do this one thing. And now in the spin-off novel, she's having a confrontation with Akane about why it's bad to bring people back to life. Yeah, I don't know about that. My preferred ending to the story is a little bit cliche, it's a little bit dumb, and it's the reason why I'm not a writer. What I was expecting would have been something like Aqua still gets saved somehow, and what happens is that since there's two entities inside of him, two things that have always been hinted at, there's that Goro side to him that has led to all of the negative bad choices that he's done throughout the series, and then there's the Aqua side, the side that is him in that current moment, that wants to live and wants to always be with these people that he's now known, that in that moment, since he's being revived, maybe he loses all of those memories, all of those fragments of Goro from his past self, that hatred that has driven him to this moment. And then he's finally able to live his life as Aqua. I don't know, it could have been like an amnesia plotline or something like that, but the drowning could have symbolized his rebirth or something like that. That's what I was expecting, and not just the complete, well, you just ruined it for yourself, kid. But that's just me and my complaints on the ending. I think that it just makes everyone else completely irrelevant to the story as a whole, which is sad because I love the anime, and the thing that makes the anime so good is how well it expands on all of our side characters. So the fact that the ending discredits every single one of them is a little disheartening. And now Oshinoko is still going strong in terms of popularity in Japan. I mean, the live action just ended, like I mentioned previously, and that's something that's a little bit, like, strange, because the live action actually had its own original ending. Yeah, Aqua still dies in it, but it goes down a different route that, from what I've seen fans say, it actually feels a little bit more natural, which is what I, overall, want to see from the story. If Aqua is to die, I want to see it done in a way that all of our other characters get to express how they feel, how we get to see their mental state. We get to see a bit more of them and not just Aqua's conclusion. My hope is that the anime gets to do something like this. It gets to expand on our characters, or maybe, and this is me just hoping a little bit, it does its own thing with its own separate ending. I don't know if they're gonna get enough creative liberties for that. I doubt it, actually, but that is something that I wish they would do. But that doesn't mean that the fan base in Japan doesn't have any critiques overall, because Mengo, the artist in the series, actually has gone on record in a few interviews, kind of throwing a little bit of shade towards Akasaka by saying things like, oh, that ending kind of made everyone a little bit ruffled up, a little bit angry, and that they wouldn't have probably had it end in that fashion. Now, am I saying that I wish that Mengo actually played more of a hand in writing the story than Akasaka? No, not really, because Mengo is a character in their own right. I mean, if you want to know who the culprit is behind the Aqua Ruby dynamic at the very end over there, you got Mengo to credit right here. I mean, they've even said that they wish that they had more opportunities to draw more explicit scenes with those two characters. Yeah, so I don't really know if I wanted them to be the primary person controlling the story. My opinion of Akasaka as a mangaka is that this is a person that knows how to write a manga. They're phenomenal at it. I love pretty much every single thing that they've written. I just think that a lot of people think that Akasaka is a mangaka that doesn't know how to close. And Kaguya-sama, I understand where some people's critiques are, but my main thing is that I think that it goes on a little bit too long, but I think it sticks the finale at the end. It's a little bit too bloated, which is the complete opposite as to what this series does. Maybe he took the critiques a little bit too harshly when it came to that. His other mangas, he hasn't really had the chance to finish them off in a proper way. Instant Bullet, Renai Daiko, they've been canceled. So the ending that we got is at the best that he could do at that moment. Akasaka is the kind of mangaka that seems like can deliver their absolute best in the beginning and towards the middle, but right when it's at the end, that's when he starts losing steam. Yeah, but with this, I think that rounds off my thoughts on Oshinoko's endings as a whole. But what did you guys think about this? Do you disagree with every word that I've said and that I'm stupid for thinking this? Or maybe, do you agree with me? Let me know down in the comments below. Thanks for getting this far and for watching. And as always, I was Randy, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.